This is Football Primetime. I'm your host, Bill Dean. I'm here, of course, with my co-host, AJ Dean. You can find us you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on, I post on Twitter and Instagram. We will eventually be up on Apple and Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also find us on YouTube. Please leave us a 5-star review if you'd be so kind. We're back. Obviously, we did the Super Bowl recap show. Let me turn off the music because I keep forgetting to always do that. I did that in the last show for hockey.
Yeah.
I know it's bad. It's bad. But we did the football, the Super Bowl recap. We kind of went into some off-season stuff and what we'd be talking about. So we are going to do a few shows during the off-season. I don't think it's worth it to have weekly shows just because of hectic schedules, and also just kind of dead. We're going to be talking about the same thing over and over again, how the Jets and Giants had horrible seasons. No one wants to hear us talk about that. So I just quickly wanted to discuss, some NFL scheduling and what we have going for the future. Quickly, we'll do a show for the free agency news and notes. I think May 16th is the start of free agency, so that next week. March. Thank you, AJ. So March, let's see. Well, that would probably make us about the 21st. We do a recap show, maybe even the 28th, depending on how many names are signed. And then the fun starts. That NFL draft, April 28th in Las Vegas. We will do a pre-show, pre-draft show where we will discuss mock drafts and some of the players and our thoughts on those players, and then we will be there as usual for the NFL draft on Thursday, not actually at the draft, but in living color on your screen, April 28th. Normally I think we do it start about 8:00, so we will do the NFL draft show with Sam, with AJ. We'll see if we can get some guests to talk about some prospects and stuff, but we'll give you our thoughts as it happens that first round, maybe even a little less, depending on at least seeing the Jets and Giants picks and any notable stuff happening. And then we will do finally a league and into start of the season. So having that show that we can talk about the teams, their off-season upgrades, and our expectations for the season and who we think is our Super Bowl predictions for next year, because this year would be a little premature, but it's going to be fun, and we'll get everything taken off, and we'll if anybody has anything they want us to talk about, let us know, and we appreciate all the love and feedback. So this show we wanted to discuss the teams in review and kind of our thoughts on what they need to do and what they need in general, and just our thoughts on the season. So first, I think, and I was looking quickly at some NFL news. Kyler Murray's in the works. They're pitching him a long-term deal, so we'll see if he's really wants to stay there.
That whole thing was interesting, though. How he played it as just scrubbing everything, all Arizona, stuff from his social media and stuff like that. Like, come on.
Yep. And he did that himself, and he was talking about media, but yeah, that's of course how it works. Raiders and Jaguars are going to open the preseason in the Hall of Fame game. The Bucks have the first regular season game in Germany, and Bucks Pro Bowl guard Ali Marpet retired at age 28. Very good player that leaves early, citing injuries and just he wants to be with family, and absolutely understood, and fantastic guard, and it sucks that he's gone. Let's talk about some free agents, AJ. If you want to go over, maybe the best offense, best defense, what people can kind of look forward to when free agency opens in March. Who's your top guys on offense? Just kind of giving people some thoughts.
I mean, I think number one, Devontae Adams, right? Depending on what they do, if they franchise tag him, if they let him walk. I mean, I doubt they let him walk, right? They're gonna franchise tag him. That's what it looks like. Reports have been. So
he's the best receiver in the league.
Yeah, hands down. I mean, Cooper Kupp, obviously, and how important he was. I put Cooper Kupp right up there too. I mean, the way that Devontae Adams plays the game and just his relationship and everything he has with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if they don't re-sign him, I don't think they have a prayer of Rodgers coming back.
Nope.
I could see Rodgers retiring. So, I think that's the biggest guy, out there,
Yeah,
potentially for
he's on
free
a tier
agency.
of all by himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens there.
But there are, and you talk about the best wide receiver, and I kind of lead into this one. There are a bunch of wide receiver
Yeah.
talents available, and I mean, the next guy I would look at would be Chris Godwin, right? He had the
Yep.
injury, where he I forget what he tore, but
ACL.
he was out for the season. ACL, thank you. He was out for the season. In between the Winston and Brady era, he's produced like a star number one. He was only
Mm-hmm.
number two because he had an all-world talent in Mike Evans with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would think he'd number two. Number three wide receiver. If you're looking for a number two guy, which I wouldn't mind the Jets going after this guy, but Chicago, right?
Yep. Allen Robinson. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too. I mean, a guy that's I feel like just under the radar there, right? Just because of the quarterback situations that they've
Yep.
had. Somebody that you see he has explosive plays, and the talent. It seems like the quarterback situation has really hindered him. So, I mean, I'd love for the Jets, to try and go out and get him. Maybe they get kind of a discount just because of the numbers aren't there as much.
Yep.
He'd be a great pickup. And then you have somebody like Mike Williams too.
Yep. Explosive abilities. Michael Gallup, another guy that kind of was overshadowed in Dallas because,
Mm-hmm.
Big D, because of Mark Cooper and obviously CeeDee Lamb. Odell Beckham Jr. coming off an injury. I do think he stays in LA, even if it's maybe on a cheaper contract, but he is technically available. And then there you have depth guys, right? You have Christian Kirk, a player that could be a second wide receiver, maybe. He's more of a three. DJ Shark, Jacksonville Jaguars. He had a breakout season 2 years ago. Last season broke his ankle, wasn't very good, but definitely a talent. Guys like Cordell Patterson, gadget guys, can do a little both.
Mm-hmm.
Will Fuller, Miami.
What about somebody like Juju Smith-Schuster?
Yeah, Juju's a very good third option. Yeah, even T.Y. Hilton, same kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Guys that you can give possession wide receivers to. They still have some good football remaining. Yeah, I very much agree.
I think somebody like Juju too. Just you saw. I think it was his rookie year, second year, right in the league. How just impressive he was, and then kind of fell down in the ranks. With all the other weapons there. I mean, I think that's somebody that could kind of rejuvenate his career. I mean, he's only he's only 25. So, I mean, he's somebody that could be a great pickup for a team that's, needing a wide receiver.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, we'll get into the Jets a little bit because I do think that this kind of plays into that in free agency and the draft. But, there's obviously tons of wide receiver talent. There are a couple tight ends available. I know Gronk's on the list, but he's either going to retire and stay in Tampa. I don't think he's going to really do much else than that. Dalton Schultz, who I like a lot, I think he'd be a very good option for even the Jets. He had a great year this past year, taking over for Jarwin. The last 2 years, he's really, established himself as a top-end tight end. I think he's going to pay it a lot, too. But you have tight ends, also Mike Gesicki and David Njoku. I'm not too big of fans on those guys, but definitely some names that are available. Any running backs that you think would be of interest? Even Zach Ertz. Sorry, I forgot about Ertz, who had a rejuvenated career in Arizona. He did really well actually since getting traded over there. But any running backs you're interested in?
I'm drawing a blank on the guy. Help me out here.
Well, you have Melvin Gordon, right? You have Cordell Patterson.
I think Patterson would stay in Atlanta.
He already talked about wanting a three-year deal. Yeah, he wants to stay.
I think Fournette too. I think he'd be smart to stay in Tampa Bay if he can. I think that's another guy that's kind of. I mean, I thought throughout his career, even what he would use with the Jaguars, that he had a decent career. In Jacksonville. It seemed like Tampa kind of rejuvenated it a little bit. He was
taken the first round. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this past year, he's proven that he's, still that number one, running back, that he can be when he gets that volume. So I mean, I think he could be a good pickup for a team that that does need it. You do worry about his longevity, just the way that he carries the ball and things like that. He's a
Yep.
he's a good option.
So that takes care of the skill positions. Obviously, quarterback would be the next one. The biggest name is Jameis Winston. You also have Teddy Bridgewater. You have Mariota, Dalton, Fitzpatrick,
Yeah.
Trubisky. I mean, the list is just basically your backups. For the Jets, I do think they need a backup quarterback. It's not going to be Jameis because he's going to want to be a starter, but I can see someone like Bridgewater or Dalton or Mariota being options there. Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, I think that Jameis is going to start wherever he goes. Depending on how that knee is healed, it looks like it's going pretty well. And then
I
you have
think
the
that
lineman.
I say I think the Saints would be smart to take him back. Do a 1-year option,
See,
something.
I don't know. I mean, yes, if they don't have a quarterback that they like in the draft, him coming back as a stopgap, I would agree. I really don't think you can win with Jameis, and I think that even they're in their transition year, after losing their coach and after losing their quarterback, I just think that Drew Brees last year, but I just think that they need to take the next step, and I don't think Jameis is that. But
I don't disagree, but I think he's somebody that you can at least fill in for a year, two. Draft a quarterback now, right? But Taysom Hill, you've seen that he's not the guy at quarterback. That
yep.
experiment I feel like has changed. He's a gadget guy. So that's why I would just bring him back on a 1-2 year deal. Just use him as a stopgap.
Yep. And then the Hog Mollies. You have Teron Armstead, an awesome left tackle. Has dealt with injuries, but he's uber talent, and I don't think they're going to Saints are going to be able to afford to franchise tag him. So I think he hits the open market. You have guys like Orlando Brown, who I think the Chiefs are going to probably most likely resign, especially because after trading for him. Brandon Sheriff, who's been Pro Bowl, who's been franchised the last 2 years. I think that his bags are pretty much packed. I would love for the Jets to get Brandon Sheriff, but we'll see how much he wants. And then you have a couple other guys, including former New York Jet this past year, Morgan Moses, right tackle. I like Morgan Moses, and I think he showed himself to be very competitive and competent as a right tackle. And I would love for the Jets to re-sign him and have him back, especially depending on how Mekhi Becton does. But some interesting options. AJ, on the defense side, let's the first name. I don't think it's gonna happen, but who are your top guys?
I mean, personally, I like DeAndre Campbell. As a linebacker.
Yeah, DeAndre Campbell, good one.
He's not obviously not one of the, obviously he's one of the top guys at his position, but somebody like J.C. Jackson too at cornerback.
Yep.
A big guy there. The Honey Badger.
Yeah.
Tyrann Mathieu, right? Up for contract. Guys that have had good years this year. Jesse Bates, Chandler Jones, the way he started off the season playing well. You have somebody in Von Miller, right, who's 33.
And that's who I was talking about. Yeah, I don't think he leaves. I just don't think another team's going to be able to pry him away. I think he's going to want to either stay there or go back to Denver or maybe even retires.
Yeah, I think he is somebody that would either retire or stay in LA. Just with that defense, the way that team has obviously won the championship, have another chance to bring it back. I see him either staying or like you said, retiring.
Yep. Talk about Chandler Jones, J.C. Jackson. A guy that I really like, who I would be interested in the Jets getting, is Marcus Williams, the safety for New Orleans. Mm-hmm. He's been fantastic. He played on franchise tag last year. They are talking about maybe $20 million a year for someone like Marcus Williams. I really do think he's a difference maker on the back end, and I would be very okay at 25 years old giving him a contract, 4 or 5 years, depending on what it is, to come play safety. Carlton Davis, the cornerback for Tampa Bay, has been a big one. He's a larger corner that maybe he's an option for the Jets or the Giants. Jadeveon Clowney, I think that's a different skill set than what the Jets would be looking for. Randy Gregory, Stephon Gilmore, all pro. Someone the Panthers after getting traded from the Patriots. He's obviously an option. There's a bunch of DNs that are available in this one, and maybe that's where someone like Hassan Reddick could come to a team like the Jets or Giants on a lower contract. And
he's had a pretty good last
2 years. Yeah. If you want big boys, Akeem Hicks, he's awesome. There's a lot of safeties available, including New York Jets Marcus May. He's not going to be back with the Jets this year. Condre Diggs, same thing. And even guys like BJ Hill in the trenches, as well as Jerry Hughes, and even Justin Houston, which I think he kind of stays there, but all pretty twilight guys, guys that can be situational rushers, which I would love for the Jets to get someone like that take over the Vinny Curry role. But yeah, some good pieces on defense. You have anything else on free agents before we start to do our little recaps on the teams?
I mean, all things considered, who would be the one guy that you would want the Jets to pick up in free agency?
Realistic or shooting for the moon? I mean, because shooting for the moon, it would be absolutely Devontae Adams. I mean, put him with a young quarterback who doesn't have to tell him how to run a route, right? Mm-hmm. That would be the top option, the guy that if you could put him with Zach Wilson and you could kind of have him be the mentor. Hey, listen, like when I cut out of that route, get it to me quick here. Or instead of Zach Wilson have to go into a rookie and being like, hey, you didn't do this right, when Zach Wilson doesn't necessarily would know what's right anyway. Yeah, he's my fantasy pick. My realistic option is Marcus Williams. I really do think that he's a good option for the Jets. They need a safety. They're talking about in the draft the Jets taking the safety from Notre Dame. I do not want them to take at a top pick a safety position. I'd rather go into free agency, and I'd spend the money there and go that way, because I do think that the Jets with 2 top picks, they could either stay on offense or they could stay on defense, and then they can use free agency to supplement those picks, with guys like an Akeem Hicks, or getting a Marcus Williams at safety, or getting a top end wide receiver to pair with Davis and with your young stud, and growing that route, getting a guard, right? You can use free agency and then supplement with those draft picks, and I think that's the way they need to go. And we'll get into that in a little bit. We're talking about it right now, but
nope. Do we lose you there? All right, looks like we lost Billy due to his great internet. All right, so we'll kind of go into I'm sure once Billy joins back in, but we're gonna go kind of more into team needs into this offseason. What they're expecting. How's your internet going?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. Yeah,
I was just explaining, what we're going to go into kind of some team needs for this offseason, what we're expecting, teams to go after either in free agency or in the draft. Did you want to complete your kind of thought at the end of there?
Well, so what I was saying, where I was talking about the Jets, right? And then all of a sudden I just lost connection, which is great. But we wanted to take a look at the teams and review, kind of go from cap space idea, what we think their needs are. Maybe if there's any really big notable free agents to discuss, and then just what we thought about their overall play for the year. And the first ones I figured would be Arizona Cardinals. We'll just go alphabetical order. Or do you want to do it by division?
Nope.
All right, alphabetical order sounds
nice and easy.
Fantastic. The Cardinals, their cap space is actually negative. They're one of the teams hurt, and they have some, notable free agents. Chandler Jones, Christian Kirk, we talked about, Zach Ertz. Even James Conner, who was very good last year. I think he was third in the league in touchdowns, all-purpose touchdowns. Both their running backs, actually, James Conner and Chase Edmonds, are all free agents. I don't necessarily know that there's any big cuts. I think they could do someone like Justin Pugh, but I think they want to build around these guys. Obviously, they have their quarterback, and just from a team needs, cornerback, they played pretty well, but I think that that's a big need for them on defense. Offensive line, I would also say wide receiver, if they're going to lose guys like Christian Kirk and AJ Green, they're going to need some, guys to step up for Kyler. Any thoughts? What do you think?
No, I know it's not necessarily a pressing issue right now, but I do think it's important for them to get a deal done with Kyler Murray.
Yep.
I think he's shown you how great of a football player he is, and I think
They
that's
have
important to
talent.
keep him happy.
Yeah, they have talent on the team.
Especially with those wide receiver core that he has. I think that's an important thing to do this offseason is just lock him up and make sure that they make him happy. Going on to the Atlanta Falcons, I think the biggest issues for them, obviously, their offensive line and defensive line. Their offensive line ranked, in the bottom of the leagues this year. Matt Ryan constantly under pressure. And then on the flip side, that defensive line, you just couldn't get any pressure at all. Their
Yep.
defense, was struggling all year long. So it's important for them to kind of shore up that inside offensive line position, as well as some of those rushers and inside linemen. Try to get some more rush and stuff like that. So,
yep. For the Falcons, obviously we talked about Cordarrelle. They don't have so many free agents. I know Dante Fowler was kind of, I guess, cut, but depending on what happens with Matt Ryan, if he is traded, if they want to go another option, that would greatly weigh in with what they have going on in the offseason. Are they a rebuilding team, or do they want to try to make one last run and see if, in a division that just lost Tom Brady, in a division that lost Sean Payton, it's kind of up for the grabs because Carolina Panthers not good.
No.
So, can a team with a veteran quarterback that knows what he's doing, has been to a Super Bowl, if they can get him weapons, can they make a legitimate run at a playoff spot and possibly even go further than that? And maybe that's where they realize they have to gear up right away, and they go to get a wide receiver for him, and they, pin him with Calvin Ridley, and they make try to get a super team, build up on draft picks and on free agents. So we'll see what happens with them.
I do think that's a big thing too. Just with Calvin Ridley, if he is able to come back and play next season or most of the season. I know he's dealing with some mental health issues. It's just great for him to get out, and focus on himself. But that's an important piece, because you see when he's on the field too, how much of a game changer he is.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. For them, like I said, I think the big thing, stems with Matt Ryan. Is there a quarterback needy team that would pay up for him? Kind of pull a Matthew Stafford type deal where they bring in a vet that can somewhat lead a team to a Super Bowl. Maybe that's something that the Denver Broncos would do. Or if Aaron Rodgers was to leave Green Bay, maybe Matt Ryan's stop is there. I don't think they'll ever trade him in division, but that would be another perfect example where the Tampa Bay has this great roster. They need a quarterback, but we'll see what happens. Baltimore Ravens, they have about $9 million for salary cap space. Man, I couldn't say the word. Calais Campbell, who I always loved, a big guy in the middle. Justin Houston, we talked about. Their big needs are cornerback, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, injuries, and they've kind of had difficulty staying on the field. I could see them doing a cornerback, safety, or a defensive lineman. Obviously Justin Reed is a very good player that they get in free agency, and they could also go for guys going trade routes. So, a team that's dangerous and a team that should have been in the playoffs if it wasn't for those two bad games, against Pittsburgh and who did they lose to? Buffalo. It was two bad games they had, but a playoff team that just needs a couple pieces to kind of get back in and back rolling.
Yeah, another team that's similar, right, is the Buffalo Bills. They were one possession away of going into the AFC Championship.
Yep.
And possibly going to the Super Bowl. So that's a team, that's a roster that's doesn't have many holes. you could see maybe the defensive interior line, for them, maybe some guys that are hitting free agency right now in Harrison Phillips and Vernon Butler, that they could lose. They could look to potentially pick up a guy in the draft. Somebody like Devontae Wyatt maybe.
Yeah.
I don't see any really other big holes. Maybe just at wide receiver, just getting a little bit younger. Getting a guy, in the draft too there.
Yep.
Just to shore it up. Make sure that Stephon Diggs isn't the only guy that Josh Allen is throwing to. In that
Yeah. I
that
mean, other than a
lethal
playoff
wide
game.
receiver core.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Buffalo has a tremendous roster, led by their coach, led by their GM, and you see that they're doing well because other teams start to pick off pieces like the Giants did with their GM. Yeah, I believe that this team's is headed in the right direction, and well, they've been headed in the right direction, but they're obviously a Super Bowl contender, and they need a couple pieces to really continue to make them, one of the premier teams in the league. Carolina Panthers, we talked about them. They have a ton of cap space, 17 million. They did lose, or they're going to lose Stephon Gilmore and Hassan Reddick. Their big need is a quarterback, right? I mean, let's not pretend that Sam Darnold and Cam Newton were the top options for them over there. They do need linebacker help, some offensive linemen, but the big thing is a quarterback. Can Matt Rule, sorry, can he lead a team that has a quarterback? Because he hasn't had that option really at Teddy Bridgewater for a little bit. But got to give him a quarterback to see what he can do. So,
yeah. Chicago Bears. I mean, we've kind of mentioned them before with Allen Robinson and just that offense. Definitely has shown improvement this year. I think under Justin Fields, I think he's kind of electrified that offense a little bit.
Yep.
With having a new coach, we'll see what happens there with that offense. But just that offensive line has to get better. They need to put weapons around Justin Fields.
They'd be dumb. They'd be dumb not to bring back Allen Robinson, and I think they're one of the top teams for Teron Armstead. I think they do need to shore up that left tackle spot.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a team that's definitely still rebuilding, right? But they have their quarterback, right? Or at least they think that they have their quarterback, and he has shown in spurts that he can play. So just getting him options and weapons and shoring up that line will go far for them. So we'll see if they if they can shore up that line for him.
Yep. The Bengals Super Bowl runners up. Jesse Bates is the big one. They're third in cap space. They have $58 million. They have a ton. They're probably going to bring back Jesse Bates depending on what goes on. Someone like BJ Hill. They do need some tackle help. The offensive line help in general is the big thing. They could save actually, I think, near $11 million with cutting Trey Waynes, which they'll probably do. But yeah, I mean, they clearly made the decision to take Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell with the 5th pick last season, but that's not to say that offensive line is not a major problem, and especially that led to kind of their Super Bowl issues. I think offensive line. Teron Armstead I could see there. I could see Sheriff, and then in the draft, right, getting someone to protect their all-pro quarterback. I believe in Joe Burrow, and I know he had a bad game, but he also was under tremendous pressure, and it's a tough thing. Offensive line. I think there was a stat that said that they had the lowest pass block rate by a Super Bowl team in the last decade. It was, and that the number 2 team was the team last year, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where Tom Brady just got the ball out quickly in order to play, win that Super Bowl versus the Chiefs.
Cleveland Browns. I think for them, just the way that they're built, right? They're a running team. But when they do that play action, with Odell gone, Jarvis Landry, I think he's fallen a little bit. They need weapons. This could be. I think this is Baker's last year, right? Is 5th year option. So we'll see what happens. If this is something that can maybe ignite Baker, get him another contract, or they might be moving on at the end of this year for him. So, I think you got to get him at least one solid weapon, either in free agency or in the draft. Find him something that he can throw the ball to on those play actions. And then edge. With Clowney, potentially leaving in free agency. Either you're going to re-sign him, which Clowney had a good year this year. Across from Myles Garrett. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, they need to shore up that defensive end spot. I think someone like Jerry Hughes would be a good option, especially to flank Myles Garrett, one of the best defensive players in football. And you could see if the Bears don't want to bring back an Allen Robinson, they want to go cheaper. Maybe the Bears getting someone like DJ Shark. Maybe Allen Robinson finds a home in Cleveland or a team like that where they could definitely use some wide receiver help. The Dallas Cowboys, I think they are the worst team in terms of salary cap space. They're minus $20 million. They're going to save probably about $5 million for Anthony Brown, cutting him. Probably another $5 million for Blake Jarwin. They're going to lose their third wide receiver, Michael Gallup. I think they have enough depth, especially to absorb something like that. We'll see what happens with Randy Gregory on the edge, and then Dalton Schultz. I'm pretty sure they'd probably take back Jarwin as some kind of a wide tight end, re-signing. Their biggest need, I think, is on the offensive line. They used to have the best offensive line in football. Yeah. And they've kind of lost that the last few years, and you can see that in the way that running back Ezekiel Elliott's played. I know he's also been hurt a little bit, but they're not going to part ways with Zeke. They might do some restructuring for his contract, but they're not going to be able to shed major money. So it's all going to result in tiny, small upgrades with their offensive line, and they're going to lose Connor Williams most likely. Leighton Vander Esch is gone. I think that offensive line is their big thing, and I know they're going to need D-line help, and they always need linebackers for some reason, which is funny when you consider Sean Lee and Leighton Vander Esch and all these guys now they have Keanu Neal, yeah. But even what's his name, the rookie this year, Parsons, and they've had tons of linebacker help, and they continually always need linebackers, but. I think offensive line is their biggest thing, and I think that's got to be something that they're either going to have to fit in with the draft, or they're going to have to have some really savvy free agent signings.
Yeah. Denver Broncos. We touched upon this with Teddy Bridgewater hitting free agency.
Yep.
You have him. You have Drew Lock, who has been a disappointment, obviously, for them.
Terrible.
So we'll see what happens with them, right? So do they try and go after Aaron Rodgers in a trade? Somebody that has been kind of linked a little bit in rumors to Denver and wanting to be there. If he doesn't return to Green Bay, they have the pieces, on the offensive side, right? With Jerry Jeudy, with their rookie running back Javonte Williams. Who else am I missing? Courtland Sutton. They have pieces there for a quarterback to step in, and maybe, like you said, maybe it's somebody like a Matt Ryan,
Aaron
right?
Rodgers,
that comes
Matt
in,
Ryan. Yep.
To help that team. We'll see what happens there. I think that's the biggest piece that they need. Defensively, there's some holes there at cornerback.
And I just don't think that they want a rookie quarterback. I really think they want a vet, and you've seen it with John Elway. He loves his vets, and that's how he won the Super Bowl with Peyton. But I think that he wants an upgrade with that's had some experience, and if he could have made a Matt Stafford trade, he would have done it. And I think Matt Ryan's a fantastic option for them if Atlanta really wants to give him up.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It just depends on what you're giving up, right? Because Ryan's 37, I think. So
you got 2 years probably.
You hope at least, right? You hope for 2 years.
They really do have a team, and I know it's a terrible division to have to fight your way out of with the Raiders, with the new coach and McDaniel, with obviously the quarterbacks on the other two teams with Patrick Mahomes and with Justin Herbert. I think that this team is built to win. They have the defense, they have a good bunch of options there, and then they have the wide receiver and the running back, and their offense line's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just another note too, quick. Filling the hole of Von Miller too, right? Whether he does maybe come back in free agency, or
Yeah,
them going out and getting somebody or somebody in the draft. So that's another
yeah,
little spot there that they need to fill. So we'll see what happens.
yeah. So next team, Detroit Lions, 23 million in cap space. No real guys that they lost. Charles Harris, Tracy Walker. They could cut Trey Flowers to get about 10 million, but I mean, pretty much needs is everywhere, right? They need a quarterback if they don't want to do someone like Jared Goff, maybe even Jared Goff to the Broncos, but who knows? Cornerback, safety, wide receivers, linebackers. I mean, they just need the entire thing. They had to convert safety Will Harris to outside corner. You know, I know that they're talking about Marcus Williams as an option there, and from New Orleans, but they just need so much, and I think that's built through the draft. They could bring in Stephon Gilmore for a little bit to kind of groom some of that secondary in Detroit. There's so many holes, right? And it's tough to really put anything as a team need. And I just think that they're gonna have so many options in the draft to get top end talent. And that's what they need to grow.
Yeah.
The Green Bay Packers, now they're an interesting story because obviously they're minus 50 over the cap, right? Their projected space is minus 50 million. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams. They have the quarterback. We'll see if that happens. Devondre Campbell, who had a great year, was an all-pro. Valdez Scantling, another wide receiver option. Robert Tonyan, their tight end. They could cut Zadarius Smith, $15.3 million. They could cut Preston Smith with another $12.5 million. Randall Cobb saves them $6.5 million. Their free agent strategy is obviously to bring in Aaron Rodgers, bring him back, and then just kind of run with the crew that they had. But they're probably going to lose a lot of valuable pieces on this team. I don't know how they're going to be able to recoup some of the big time players that they're going to lose. It's going to be tough, and that's why I think Aaron Rodgers has kind of a debate on his hands. Would he leave and go to a place that can really afford him and has all the pieces he needs, or does he try to run it back with his guys and see if that works one last time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously stems from what happens with Devontae Adams, right? If he does come back, or if they let him walk, then I think it's a discussion too, with the team being like, hey, I need weapons, right? You see that he can, when he has pieces, how just lethal he is, and just with one piece in Devontae Adams, right? How lethal he is.
Yeah.
So if they can get him one more weapon, right? I think he'll take a weakened defense, right, in order to just get him the option to air raid offense.
And they for some reason continually do this, but that first round pick, if they're going to keep Aaron, it's got to be spent on a wide receiver. I don't even think it's not even a thought. Because also think about it. I mean, you might lose Devontae Adams, so now you do need wide receiver help. You neglected it for so long. Now is the time that you actually need that. So, but yeah, it's another thing where we're just waiting to see what they do.
Houston Texans.
Every position.
What do you say, right? I mean, I think they have a quarterback in Davis Mills. Maybe. He looked okay. He looked good at times, but it's hard to tell, right? With the team that was put in front of him, his options that he had. We'll see if they can put some kind of pieces in front of him. I'm sure they'll have Tyrod Taylor and him, go at it for, the starting position. We'll see what happens there if Mills does beat him out. But I mean, they need everything. I know on that team, offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I think their big thing is for 2023. They had a lot of 2-year contracts that they kind of built up, and they're going to spend it all big in 2023. Deshaun Watson, we'll see what happens with him. He's obviously going to get traded. We'll just see for what that price is and what they can bring back. But yeah, I mean, I think they're honestly worse off than the Detroit Lions. I think they're that bad. But Indy Colts, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. They have $40 million. they'd be a fantastic option for someone like
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers, or we even talked about it. Someone like Matt Ryan would be a fantastic add there. Eric Fisher, the tackle, they're probably going to re-sign him. Mo Ali Cox at tight end, Xavier Rhodes, some guys, T.Y. Hilton, Marlon Mack, but they could cut Carson Wentz and save about $13 million, and now all of a sudden you have 50, and you can go out there and you can really get someone like Aaron Rodgers to come in. Michael Pittman's performed well in year 2. Zach Pascal's not great. They need some wide receiver help. Maybe they could do both. Maybe him and maybe it's Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
I'll say, how about that thought, right? Get in Devontae Adams, right, and then doing what LA has done, right? Trade away your first round pick, right?
Or it's
you apparently don't need him.
Yeah, or if you can't do that, maybe it's Matt Ryan and it's someone like Chris Godwin, right? I just the options there. You get an offensive tackle in the draft, and this team's a Super Bowl contender. I really think that they're that good. Their defense is awesome, and they have the offensive line, and their running back is
the Eagles
MVP.
Man, fleeced the crap out of the Indianapolis Colts.
I know it's bad.
I did think Carson Wentz would getting out and being with Frank Reich would make a difference, but apparently not.
No. All right, the team with the second most projected cap space, the Jacksonville Jaguars. AJ.
Yeah, I mean,
$60 million.
Obviously, they have the quarterback of their future, right? In Trevor Lawrence. Outside of that, it's a question mark, right? You have the running back in Travis Etienne, right, and you have James Robinson. You have 2 guys that are studs at that position, right? Outside of that, it's they need to show up that wide receiver core. They need some offensive line,
Chris Godwin
to protect him. So there's a lot of options for them to go after on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, same thing. They have defensively they played terribly this year, right? So, looking to shore up that D line, potentially some outside linebackers that they can look to get, to shore up and be more of a effective team in that AFC South.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them shelling out big money for guys like Chris Godwin, with guys like Brandon Sheriff. I mean, I know we say the same names over and over, but these are the kind of talents that they need. They need young guys with big-time upside, and then they just need maulers and guys that they can rely on to give them a good dollar, play for their dollars. So Jaguars need help, but they have the assets. They have draft capital and they have free agency dollars. So. The Chiefs, surprisingly, under the cap, $14.5 million to spend. Orlando Brown's going to take a big chunk out of that. They're going to have to re-sign him. Who knows if Tyrann Mathieu comes back? They do have guys like Melvin Ingram, who they got in the trade. But they need defensive line help. And, if that is Melvin Ingram or whoever it is in a trade, maybe they can also save about $13 million to cut Frank Clark. They need some. It's funny to actually say it, but they do need wide receiver help because you clearly saw that outside of Tyreek Hill, and I know they have the tight end, which is pretty de facto wide receiver, but outside of Tyreek Hill, you can't really rely on Byron Pringle and and Hardman and what's his name, the wide receiver that keeps getting drug issues. But there's guys like that.
Robinson, is it?
No. The kid from the Browns. I'm blanking on his name.
Gordon.
Melvin. Gordon.
Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon. They need some wide receiver help, and they could use cornerback help. Yeah. And like I said, I think the big thing is re-signing Orlando Brown. It's possibly bringing back someone like Tyrann Mathieu, who is the MVP of the defense and kind of leads that group, and it's getting a defensive end. But they're going to be contenders as long as they have Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of a team that you look at and their wide receiver, their main wide receiver and tight end have played well, right? But it's outside of that. Who does ball go to, right? So we'll see. If they can find another option for Derek Carr, at wide receiver. Obviously you had.
Did you say that you mentioned this is the Raiders you were talking about? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
I must
the
have
Raiders.
blacked out a little bit.
$20 million. they had the wide receiver that got into the car accident,
Yep.
with alcohol, blanking on his name.
Yeah, they need wide receiver help bad. Yeah,
So they need help
with an
there, and
H.
yeah, and then just defensively, right? In that linebacker position, that inside defensive line, shoring up spots there.
Henry Ruggs.
The Henry Ruggs, yeah, all right, thanks. And then just cornerback help, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe getting something like Casey Howard Jr. Was a great offseason signing last year, right? But with him hitting free agency, they need somebody to shore up that side, cornerback wise. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, their main guys, right, are Hunter Renfro, very good wide receiver, but he's more of a 2 or a 3. Obviously, the big tight end and Darren Waller. They have guys in the room that are competent in Zay Jones and Brian Edwards, but losing guys like Ruggs, losing other first-round wide receivers, it's put them in a hole. And they have running back in Josh Jacobs. Like you said, they have the quarterback that they believe in Carr at the moment, although we'll see what McDaniels does. But they have solid options, and they just need to build up that offense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chargers, fourth in salary cap space. They have Mike Williams. Let's see if they re-sign him. Linval Joseph, former Giant. Chris Harris Jr., who's been a very solid tight cornerback for them for a while. Their big stuff. Right? Everybody needs cornerbacks, but they especially need help on defense, on cornerback, defensive line. And then if they do lose someone like Mike Williams, can they bring in another wide receiver to complement Keenan Allen and to the physicality they get from Williams, supplementing that with another wide receiver, because they have the quarterback. They have a very good coach in Staley, Brandon Staley, who I think is going to be one of the primetime guys, around. Vic Fangio has had great defenses, and we'll see if they can add someone that can help Fangio to make this defense a legit team. Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, LA Rams, right? It doesn't seem like they have too many holes, especially on that defensive front. The way that defensive line is played. But they do need, some linebacker help and cornerback help. We'll see what happens there if they can shore up that defense, even more. Maybe they go after some, not necessarily in free agency, but get some guys in the draft, and they need some help actually shoring up that offensive line. Potentially Andrew Whitworth. I don't know if he's officially retired or not. But they could pick up somebody there too. Somebody to help replace him. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, they're looking in good sorts. Kind of heading into this offseason. Kind of returning the same team as they did last year.
Yep. Miami Dolphins, first in salary cap space. I actually thought it was the Jets, but I think the third. Mike Gesicki, Will Fuller. They need help on offensive line and wide receiver. The new coach, Mike McDaniel, trying to develop an offense under Tua. They just need help on offense. And I think getting someone, like a Laken Tomlinson, a Tom Compton, guys that have been with him in San Fran, where they can step in and kind of fill in for Mike McGlinchey and some other guys that, their offense is the great need. The defense is pretty stellar. Vikings. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big pressing issues is quarterback. What happens, once Kirk Cousins is out, is gone.
1 year left, $45 million against the cap this year.
All right. So you're obviously paying him that money. Do you try to go after somebody in the draft? Do you try to maybe grab somebody in free agency? I would assume they're going to go after somebody in the draft, as a heir apparent to Cousins. And then just, at cornerback itself on defense, right? Vikings were terrible, giving up the third most yards on the outside to wide receivers. So they definitely need to rehaul that cornerback position, and then just other positions on defense, the inside line, and that edge. They're having some issues there too that they need to fill.
Patriots, 8 million under. J.C. Jackson, who's probably gonna get a payday. They have some other guys like Dante Hightower, Devin McCourty, who would. These guys would probably come back on vet contracts. But they need help on wide receiver. Mac Jones, if he is a legit one, um, needs help. I could see them going for a trade for someone like Calvin Ridley if Atlanta decides to hang it up, or if Allen Robinson could become maybe New England's version. Uh, on defense, they're going to need some help with corner, edge, depending on who leaves. If someone like Jaquan Bentley's gone, and then linebacker, right? The Dante Hightower, if he is gone, they could use some help. So, but the Patriots, they're stacking up, and I can see Bill, Mr. Belichick, coming in with a new crop and kind of doing well. If he gets Calvin Ridley, I'd lose it, but that's just
yeah. New Orleans Saints. We already touched upon it with the quarterback situation. I think they'd be smart to bring back Jameis. I think he's shown enough.
Their biggest thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but they're 76 million over the cap. They are hamstrung.
Yep.
And that's why they're going to lose guys like Teron Armstead and Marcus Williams, because they've decided to push all this contracts for so long, and then they're still trying to do that, right? I think they just restructured Mike Williams. They just structured Mike Thomas, and they're trying to do that. They're going to save money by cutting Bradley Roby. It's amazing how they've pushed this cap for so long. Mickey Loomis has done a great job. It's just I don't think you can do it this year.
Yeah, I think you just kind of cut your losses, go into rebuild mode. I don't think you want to go into the season having Taysom Hill as your starting quarterback. I think you're smarter to have somebody like a Jameis Winston.
Unless you want to tank. Unless they want to tank.
Yeah, that's true. So, and then other positions that they need, wide receiver, right? Michael Thomas being injured most of the season. And even we'll see what happens with Alvin Kamara, right? With his legal issues. What happens?
Yep.
There. So they're a team that's coming in this season, and who would have thought, right, that they would be a team that could be potentially rebuilding. At the start of this last year. So.
All right, we'll save the Jets and Giants for last, and we'll do quick hitters real fast because we are run up on time. Eagles, I think that they need cornerback and linebackers. Basically, need help on defense. Their offense, depending on if they do believe that, what's his name is the quarterback? I'm blanking on the quarterback name for Jalen Hurts. Thank you. Depending on if they believe in him truly, I think that they need some help on defense. There's tons of options for them, and they have 3 first-round picks, so they're going to build through the draft. Steelers, $31.3 million. They have Juju. They could save another $8 million with Joe Schobert. Quarterback, obviously, is the biggest one. I don't think they want to go in with forehead and
Mason Rudolph.
And just offensive tackle, right? Their offensive line was bad, and I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
You want to quickly hit the Niners and the Seahawks?
Both NFC West. Right? Another team, with not as many glaring holes. I do think they have to revisit soon the Jimmy G conversation.
I think they're going to do this year.
And Trey Lance, right? They have to give him a fair shake there. But just cornerback and inside line, those 2 positions that they needed to shore up. But definitely contenders, I think, this year.
Yeah, great team. The Seahawks, $35.6 million. Dwayne Brown, Quandre Diggs. They need help at defense, at edge, and cornerback, and then they need the tackle spot. I think that I should say this. As long as Russell Wilson's there, they'll need help in the trenches. If they decide to send out Russ to another team, which is obviously the talks, then that changes the entire dynamic of that team. What do they do with their wide receivers? Seattle has an interesting offseason. I do think Russell stays there, but they have some options that they can go with. Tampa
Bay, obviously another quarterback needy team, right? With Brady retiring. we'll see what happens with their wide receivers with Chris Godwin. If
Gronk.
he does return or not.
Yep.
Gronk leaving too, but they do have Cameron Brate there. They do have
Yep.
some other guys at tight end that can fill in there. And then just defensive line, right? With Sue, potentially being or going out. We'll see what happens there. Who they can refill.
Yep. Titans, very good team last year. Had some issues down the stretch, especially with their running back being hurt. They need help at basically the interior offensive line. I'd also probably say the edge. They're going to lose Harold Landry as well as Anthony Ferkser at a tight end spot. John Brown could be gone at linebacker, former All-Pro. Former Pro Bowler. But they're in their contention window, and they need to go after someone like a Zach Ertz and a Justin Houston to kind of bring them over that top, because they're right there. And if they make a couple savvy moves, I do think that they are one of the leaders for the AFC.
Lastly, the Washington Commanders. That's weird to say.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Obviously, another quarterback-heavy team, right? That's needs to fill that position with Fitzpatrick. Yep. Potentially, we'll see what happens. If he does try to come back from that injury or not. But Taylor Heineke didn't play the greatest this season. We'll see what happens, right? If they try to go after a quarterback. In free agency, if they try to look for a trade, but that's another team that is still very much rebuilding.
This is the one team I think you can say. This is the one team I think you can say that their trenches are pretty good. They have the line, offensive line and defensive line down stat.
Yeah.
It's just, can they get the quarterback to kind of lead them? Because they made the playoffs with Taylor Heineke 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Can they help with safety as well? And I think that they're right around with what you need. All right, let's go to it. New York Giants. They're actually negative in cap space. They have guys like Evan Ingram, Jabril Peppers, Nate Solder. Thank God for Solder. That's a big cap help. James Bradbury, if they're cutting him, saves them $12 million. I don't know that they want to do that. I think Bradbury had a good year last year, or at least was better. Blake Martinez is going to save $1.5 million. They're going to get rid of him. I know he's hurt last year, and he's kind of lost a step. Kyle Rudolph, another $5 million. They're big needs, right? Interior offensive line. They need big-time help in the trenches. Andrew Thomas played a little better after, a pretty down year. I think they need help a little bit at right tackle, but their interior offensive line is the big need. They also need help at edge, and their linebacker spot, right? Is this the year that they go after a linebacker after 2 years in a row, them kind of dodging that bullet? But Joe Schoen's inherited a bad cap situation, and they're going to bring back their quarterback, and they're going to go in with him. Wink Martindale's defense. We'll see how they play with that, but I could see Ted Karras being an option, former Patriots guard. And they're going to address a lot of holes in the draft. They have 2 picks, 2 top 7 picks. I could very well see them going offense, defense. I don't think they'll, like I said, I don't think they'll go with a quarterback, but I could see them going with a safety or a corner, or I could see them going wide receiver, taking a tackle. There's 2 big tackles that they could go with, kind of solidify that right tackle spot. But you got any thoughts on the Giants?
No. I think you tackled a lot of the the big questions.
I could also see wide receiver, right? Because they have a bunch of complementary wide receivers. They don't have a stud.
Yeah. I think obviously we're a year away from this, but what happens with Daniel Jones, right?
Give him weapons. Let him see.
Yeah, I mean,
if you can't do it next year, then
exactly. So
new coach, new GM.
Watch. All right, you want to get on to our New York Jets here?
Yeah. I'll let you take this one, and then I'll add my 2 cents afterwards.
No, I mean, you have Marcus May, right, with that injury.
$50 million in cap space, by the way.
Which is great, right? Having that cap space. May obviously going to be out the door. We already mentioned that, we need weapons, right, for Zach Wilson,
Yep.
at the wide receiver position. I do like Corey Davis. I think he's been a good presence. I don't think he's had the greatest year this year.
A lot of
But
drops, a lot of injuries. Yep.
I would like to see our wide receiver core, being shored up.
Yeah,
Denzel
right.
Mims
You got
has been a
Mims is
disappointment.
gone. Yep.
Um,
But Elijah Moore has had a great rookie season, and I could see him being a building block. Him, Corey Davis, and
yes.
if you give him one more option, that'd be good. Yep.
Yeah. So I think just that, and I do think we need some line, to shore up, to give Wilson a little bit more, a little bit more pocket protection, take care of him, and then just defensively, right, at that cornerback position, and excuse me, at that safety position. I think those are two needs that that the Jets need.
Just not in the draft. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
All right. So my thoughts are they don't have anyone there to cut. Sheldon Rankins, they could save $5 million, but they're not going to cut him. They're going to use him in the trenches. They like him. Folu Fatukasi is a very underrated defensive tackle, especially nose tackle that could stop the run. I want to re-sign him and bring him back. I also do like Morgan Moses. It would be really nice to have him come back, but we'll see if he gets paid somewhere else. Marcus May's gone. Jamison Crowder's gone. Braxton Berrios, was in the Pro Bowl as a returner. I'm not going to pay the $10 million it's going to take to get him back, so see you later. Keelan Cole, he was okay. Another guy that I didn't think did very much, and I would say I'd be very okay with saying bye-bye to him. They do have some depth guys. We talked about Corey Davis. We talked about Elijah Moore. They have guys like Jeff Smith. They have Mims, who looks like he's going to get traded. Tariq Black. There's a couple other guys, but they need wide receiver help. That's first. Secondly, I think the big need for them is going to be cornerback and linebacker help. I think they can get a tackle or a guard in the draft to kind of solidify that right side, because that was the only thing. I think left side they're pretty good. AVT, Connor McGovern at the center spot. You could re-sign Louvant Duvernay-Tardif and bring him back for the right guard spot. Get a right tackle if because you have George Fant on they're saying on the left side it's going to be Fant. On the right side, maybe it's Mekhi Becton. If there's injury, worries, maybe you get a different right tackle, or you can, keep Fant as a swing tackle. I keep saying Fant as a swing tackle, and you can get another left tackle. I do not want Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, and I know that's a lot of teams have him at Jets for number 4, and I'm going to lose it if that's the case. Just like if it was a D tackle, but. The secondary does need a facelift. I am a big proponent of either Derek Stingley or getting a defensive end with those 2 picks, with that first pick at 4. I really do like, I said it, Marcus Williams. Give me Marcus Williams at free safety. I'll pay the money to get him. I also do like J.C. Jackson. He's someone that I think the Jets could really use is a big-time corner that has some experience. If that's Stephon Gilmore, that's fine. If it's J.C. Jackson, great. If it's Carlton Davis, depending on how much he's going to I would go for that second option of corner, because I do think that they're doing pretty well with developing corners. Brandon Echols was okay. Bryce Hall, I thought, was a very good cornerback for the Jets last year. He's probably a number 2, and that's why I'm saying maybe a different guy at the 1 spot. Michael Carter's the second is a pretty good option at the slot corner. We actually didn't talk about Michael Carter the first, or actually just Michael Carter. Running back had a really good year. I could see them going after a different running back to kind of supplement
different
that.
Style.
Yeah. Playoff Leonard Fournette would be an interesting option, but I think they'd probably go with someone in the draft to get a 4th or 5th round pick and spend it on a kind of a bruiser. They do need backup quarterback. Joe Flacco's gone. Mike White, who knows what's going to happen with him. I don't mind him, but I think you need a vet. I would bring in an Andy Dalton, or I would bring in someone that's got the veteran leadership to kind
Mariota,
of
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, Mariota, Trubisky. I'm okay with any of those guys. You need tight end help. I mean, basically, the Jets need a lot. They keep saying they need a lot of help. But tight end, getting someone that can really establish that post for Zach Wilson, be an option in the red zone. Carl Lawson's going to be back at the defensive end spot. You have John Franklin Myers in the interior with Quinn Williams. You need that other defensive end to kind of supplement that. We talked about linebacker. C.J. Mosley's going to be there just because of his cap hit. Quincy Williams was good. He's good, right? That's the best thing you can say, but he's good. He's not a game changer, but I do think they need help at the linebacker spot and then quarterback safety. I mean, that pretty much does it for the team needs. We will, like I said, do you have anything else on the Jets before I?
No. Yeah, I mean, it's still a team that is rebuilding, right? So we'll see what they do in this offseason.
Yep.
With free agency, with the draft picks that they have. We'll see if this team can make some kind of splash this year and show the improvements that we're all hoping for, right? If they can potentially get a playoff berth, I'll take a wild card berth and lost in the first round. I think I would be very much happy with that this year, right? So playoffs. I think that's my hope. Is them making the playoffs and seeing if they can just go into the right direction, right? Because I can't deal with another losing season. With them.
No. Yeah, and even keep Tevin Coleman is what I was gonna say. I think he did pretty well. You see what he's got. So, so we'll be back for our we'll be back for the free agency recap when it happens on the 16th. We'll be probably back that week later. We'll also discuss the draft before it happens, and then during the draft, and then we'll have our final show before the 2022 season starts. Sometime in June, and then we'll get into the swing of things when football starts. So, pretty excited, and it's going to be a good off season. It's always fun to talk off season football. At least everybody has a chance, which is a good thing. But for some reason, I got booted off the MC3. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. This is behind the scenes stuff. I was going to play the intro music, and then all of a sudden I see that I'm no longer connected, so I can't even sign our thing off. That's good. So this is what happens in the podcasting world. Oh, no. Did I get booted again? No. Still waiting for load. But yeah, I mean, we're excited, like I said, about football and what's to come. Jets, Giants both have legitimate options. Legitimate options in that first round of the draft. In free agency, they have Jets have more money, a lot more money to spend than the Giants do. But we'll see if Joe Schoen can kind of do his magic and get this team going.
I do have a trivia question.
Oh yeah, shoot.
Which I will let you think about while you're trying to get us going. So with obviously NFL free agency coming up very soon here, when was the first year that we had the current NFL free agency as we know it?
The first year that we had a current NFL free agency?
The first year that we had this current NFL free agency that we know of today.
Well, probably the 90s?
You're in the 90s.
96?
So 93 was the first year that we had this iteration of the free agency. Cap space came out in 1994. It was due to a lawsuit. A couple of players filed against the NFL. Not being able to be, free agents.
Considered free agents.
Then.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first actual iteration of the rule, though, was the reserve rule in 1920 to 1946. There were subsequent years where it changed, but the reserve rule back then, each player's contract contained a clause allowing the team to continually re-sign them to one-year deals on the same terms.
That's evil.
So, yeah, more from there, but 1993 was the first year that we started having the NFL free agency as we know it today.
Not bad. All right, boys. We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate everybody, tuning in. This is Football Primetime.